The European Commission has unveiled its plan to overhaul the EU's migration and asylum system, appealing to member states to show solidarity with one another. European countries have long disagreed about the best way to manage migration. Under the new proposals, countries like Hungary and Poland, who refuse to accept migrants, would instead offer money, equipment, or personnel to help patrol borders. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the continent must rise to the challenge on migration.
This package reflects a fair and reasonable balance between responsibility and solidarity among member states. We all share the benefits. We all share the burden. This package also reflects a very pragmatic and realistic approach. We know that we have to build trust among member states and citizens' confidence that we can manage this as a union.
DW's Alexandra von Namen is in Brussels covering this story for us. Hi, Alexandra. Tell us more about what is in this proposal.
Well, as we just heard, Ursula von der Leyen has described this proposal as pragmatic and realistic. And that is indeed what it seems to be, not an entirely new plan, revolutionary plan, but a kind of compromise, acknowledging the fact how difficult it is to find an agreement on that issue. Key takeaways here, the European Commission is abandoning the idea of mandatory refugee quotas, requiring EU members to take in a certain amount of refugees or migrants. Another key issue is that the European Commission is saying it's important to beef up screenings for new arrivals at the EU's external borders, and that it is important to intensify efforts to return those who have no right to stay in the European Union. So overall, I would say that this proposal is showing that Europe is once again getting tougher on migrants.
Alexandra, it does really seem to be a strategy to try to appease some of the countries who don't want to take in migrants. So tell us more about how some of the incentives and compromises in this proposal work.
Well, indeed, it seems to be the strategy here to reach out and address the concerns of those countries who still refuse to take in refugees and migrants. The European Commission here is saying, OK, if you are not willing to do that, that you need to contribute in other areas. Key word here is flexible contributions. Those countries will be asked to provide money to fund so-called reception centers or to take over the responsibility for those who need to be returned to their countries because their asylum claims were rejected in the European Union. So that's an attempt by the European Commission to make sure that those countries are on board and that finally an agreement can be found on this very sensitive issue.
And Alexandra, just quickly, what makes the Commission think that they have the solution now? Because this has been one of the most politically sensitive issues in the European Union.
Well, when we talk to EU officials or even German politicians, they tell you that everyone now understands that something needs to be changed. And that is their argument to say that the chances for an agreement right now are higher than before.
Our correspondent, Alexandra von Namen, reporting for us from Brussels. Thank you so much. So what will this mean for migrants who are seeking shelter in Europe? Let's get the perspective of Karen Metz from the NGO Save the Children in Brussels. Hi, Karen. Thank you for joining us. Will this new proposal change anything for people who are in camps right now in Greece or in Italy?
Well, we fear that this pact risks repeating some of the mistakes that we saw in Greece right now. The pact introduces a new pre-screening and border procedure, which would allow member states to register and fingerprint people and then channel them into asylum, border, or returns procedures, which is essentially what we see in the hotspots in Greece right now. Processing asylum claims or returning people is not so straightforward. There are lots of obstacles, and we fear that people will risk ending up in detention for extended periods of time.
Okay, so you're saying it's not much of an improvement. I mean, do you think this new proposal will work?
A lot will depend on the willingness of EU member states to cooperate, because even if you have these border procedures, member states, frontline member states like Italy, Greece, and Malta will be reluctant to cooperate if there isn't any sort of mandatory relocation, and then they might not disembark or ships that have been rescued, and then migrants remain stranded. So a lot will depend on the willingness of EU member states, which in the last 5 years has not been very high.
Indeed, this has been a very divisive issue within the European Union. So from your perspective, what would be the right approach to create a common approach to migration?
Well, we believe that there needs to be a commonly supported solidarity mechanism, which also includes mandatory relocation, because otherwise member states in the front line will not cooperate. We also believe that things can be, we don't need to rely on detention. There are alternatives. Member states could immediately take up asylum seekers at the borders when they arrive without having to place them in detention while their asylum claims are being processed. This was actually in the Dublin proposal that was proposed by the European Parliament back in 2016 or 2017, but has never been picked up.
And Karen, you are with Save the Children. I have to ask, I mean, does there need to be a particular approach, a strategy to help children in camps or unaccompanied minors?
Yes, and this is a positive thing of the Pact, because it seems that unaccompanied children and children below the age of 12 would be exempt from the new border procedures that are being proposed. We, of course, believe that a child is anybody below the age of 18, so we find this differentiation of the age of 12 quite arbitrary. But this is good. There are some specific issues like fast-tracking family reunification, maybe providing alternatives to detention, and improving alternative care that are mentioned in the Pact. But of course, vulnerable groups are currently also exempt from the hotspots in Greece, but they're still there. So it remains to be seen how this will all work in practice.
Karen Metz from Save the Children joining us from Brussels. Thank you very much.